Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Biggest story out of Selection Sunday is simple. It's straightforward. It is the fact that the North Carolina Tar Heels, who had a grand total of basically 0 brackets that anyone saw anywhere with North Carolina in the field, they make it as team number 68. They will play Wednesday night in Dayton. I don't even remember who they're playing, to be perfectly honest. Doesn't really matter. But I bring it up because North Carolina is in. This was the shocker of all shockers. And of course, it comes with Bubba Cunningham, the North Carolina AD, as the head of the selection committee. A lot of people got a lot of thoughts on this. So before we break down brackets, I just got to spend 4, 5, 6 minutes on North Carolina being team number 68 in the field. By the way, West Virginia, which everybody had in their bracket, was team number 69. So man, oh man, oh man, what a crazy story. My first thought when I see team North Carolina in, listen, I want to be fair and I want to be transparent because I have gone a lot. North Carolina, I got a lot of takes on, okay? And if you listen to this show probably about 2.5 weeks ago, I did say that, listen, I thought that North Carolina, if the way the cut line worked, that North Carolina was on the fringes, I thought that they should probably be given the benefit of the doubt. This was 2.5 weeks ago. And my argument was pretty simple. They scheduled as aggressively as anybody in college basketball. They go to Maui. They play the eventual SEC tournament champs or SEC regular season champs, Auburn Tigers, who are, of course, the number 1 overall seed. They face Michigan State and lose the eventual Big Ten champs. They played Florida in the out-of-conference. They played Alabama in the out-of-conference. And they played Duke 3 times. And so of their 13 losses, 7 of them, an insane stat, were to teams that were eventually in position to get number 1 seeds. And oh, by the way, 5 of those losses came to teams that were number 1 seeds. And so I said about 2.5 weeks ago, I said, look, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think you should punish teams for scheduling aggressively. They didn't have to go to Maui. They could have stayed home and played Eastern Illinois and Western this and South Dakota School of Technology and, a tractor trailer school from down the street, and they could have picked up 3, 4, 5 more wins. But what I will also say is that as the last couple of weeks went on, it became harder and harder to defend Carolina. First of all, 1 quad 1 win all season, okay. But they have Duke at home on senior day. And yeah, we talked about that game. It was close. It was competitive. It was this. It was that. It was whatever. Duke still blew him out of the building. And then to me, I think about the way that last week or the way the ACC tournament ended. We have not done a live show since Wednesday night, but we all know what happened Friday night at the ACC tournament. We all know that it was Duke versus Carolina. Duke was up by as much as 24 points in that game. Carolina rallies before a Jalen Withers lane violation on a game-tying free throw cost Carolina. And so I'll be honest, I'm the guy that defended Carolina for 2, 3, 4 weeks on this show as they started to play better. But I thought as we got closer to Selection Sunday, it was just harder to justify. I thought, listen, if you get that win against Duke, even without Cooper Flagg, okay, there's at least an argument. Yes, it's only 2 quad 1 wins, but you beat Duke. You have the win over UCLA. You played a million tough out-of-conference games. But a couple things happened. One, other teams on the bubble kept winning. Arkansas went from bubble to in the tournament. Georgia, 4 straight wins to end the regular season. Oklahoma, to its credit, played its way off the bubble into the tournament. So some of those teams, yes, during Champ Week did not play well. But the counter to that was during the final few weeks of the season, there were teams that were improving their resumes. Again, Oklahoma, you go on and on down the list. Most of the teams on the 8 or 9 or 10 seed lines were all those teams. And so for me, it became increasingly hard to defend North Carolina. And then I thought by the time we got to Selection Sunday, I didn't see the argument for North Carolina. Because again, you look at all those teams that played their way in. The fact that, oh, by the way, Colorado State wins the Mountain West. And then The bracket comes out, and I'll say this, it happened early in the bracket show, so at least you had time to digest it. By the way, should mention, I just hosted 3 hours of Fox Sports Radio, so I'm just reacting in real time like everybody else. But North Carolina gets in as team number 68. We see the committee has West Virginia at team number 69. And as we start to look at North Carolina being in this field, I got to be real. I think it's hard to justify. I think it's hard to explain. And listen, I haven't shared many of my Luka Doncic conspiracy theories on this show, but the Luka Doncic trade was sketchy, and North Carolina getting in as the last at-large team, that's on the Luka scale. Like if Luka's a 10, this is like an 8.5, okay? So first of all, with the bracketology stuff, let me say this. I want to defend all my bracketology people, okay? Because at the end of the day, I think it's easy to sit there and say, oh, whatever. What do these guys really know? Well, listen, I don't know if there is a field where these dudes grind harder to put out quality content than the bracketology people, okay? We've had Rocco Miller from Field of 68 on Fox Sports Radio the last 2 nights. Listen, I know college basketball. This dude knows bracketology in a manner that I can't even explain, okay? Q1 this, Q2 that, wins above bubble. And so, to me, bracketology is almost the opposite of most media. I think when I look at most media, what I see is a bunch of groupthink, right? You think about the NFL draft, perfect example. Somebody says, oh, I don't know if Shedeur Sanders is a first-round pick. Then somebody else says it, then somebody else says it. And you wonder, do people actually think that, or is it groupthink? Well, I bring it up because I don't think there's groupthink in NCAA tournament bracketology. I think all these guys bust their butts to be differentiators, to look different, to sound different, to say something different. And none of them had North Carolina in the field. The thing was, it made it easy. Put North Carolina in. They're the big brand. It makes it look easy. So when no bracketologist, because remember, what is bracketology ultimately, right? Bracketology is ultimately, it is not someone's opinion on what the bracket should be. It's someone's, what bracketology is, it's not someone's opinion on what the bracket should be. What the bracketology actually is all these guys and girls projecting what the committee will do based on previous year's results. So the fact that all of these bracketologists looked at all of these brackets and all of these selection committees from years past, and none of them could justify putting Carolina in, I'm right there alongside them. The other thing is, as I said a minute ago, Bubba Cunningham, lead of the NCAA Tournament Committee, head of the committee, chair of the committee, is the North Carolina AD. Now, listen, I thought it was very clever that they brought on the associate chairman of the committee to do all the interviews because, of course, to the credit of the committee and to the credit of CBS, I'll give Seth Davis credit on this one. Seth Davis asked the question everybody wanted to know. Bubba, you're the North Carolina AD. Everybody seems to think that your team did not belong in. How do you explain it? And Bubba Cunningham gave the whole thing about I recused myself and I wasn't in the room when they talked Carolina. And so they brought in the secondary person, the second guy in charge of the committee to explain Carolina. I love the explanation, by the way. The explanation was, well, listen, we had UAB. If UAB had won the AAC, then guess what? That means that they would have been 68 and Carolina would have been 69 and they were out. Oh, you mean so if a bid stealer had actually stolen a bid, the team that was in 68th place would have been out of the tournament? Yeah, we all know that. And so I think the bigger question, and I don't blame CBS, you're reacting in real time, but the big question is, what did you see on Carolina's resume that wasn't on West Virginia's resume? Now, you could, if you really want to try, you can probably figure out some things. Listen, Carolina, I guess to their credit, you're talking about a team that, yes, they only had one quad one win. They only, by the way, in their defense, if you want to go so far as to defend North Carolina, this is a team that of their 13 losses, 12 of them were in quad one. So again, 13 losses, 1-12 in quad one. I guess to their credit, 21-1 in non-quad one games, really only one bad loss, Stanford at home. And I guess if you're really trying to make the argument for them, West Virginia, who was the first team out, that was a team that had a couple quad two losses compared to North Carolina, which had 0 quad 2 losses and 1 quad 3 loss. But man, oh man, it's just tough. I mean, because you look at West Virginia, one, they took care of business in the out of conference. That's the funny part. They beat Gonzaga in the out of conference. They beat Arizona. I know Arizona is a Big 12 team, but technically Arizona is a team in the out of conference. It counted as an out of conference game because they played them in the Battle for Atlantis. They had a couple nice wins. Now, the thing with West Virginia, they did have a couple really bad losses. They lost to UCF or Colorado, I guess it was, in the conference tournament. They lost, they lost at Kansas State. They got swept at Cincinnati. So I just think that it's an interesting dynamic with North Carolina of one great win, no really bad losses. West Virginia had a couple really bad losses as well. But listen, I'm not going to sit here and defend North Carolina. There's a lot to get to, but that was the big story. I'm still in shock that Carolina was in while we're here, so I'm not just picking on Carolina. I'm stunned that Xavier was in. I guess to a degree, I'm stunned that Texas was in as well. But I guess to me, what that tells me is the bubble was really weak. And it was funny. This was one thing that we did talk about on our selection show on Fox Sports Radio. If you're somebody that either wants expansion or has said like, hey, expansion really wouldn't be that bad at the NCAA tournament, tonight was a bad night for expansionists, okay? Because UNC, one quad one win. Xavier, one quad one win. I believe San Diego State was 2-5 in Q1, but at least they have a win over Houston to kind of hang their hats on. But what a weird day. By the way, the other team that got really screwed, Indiana, 4 quad one wins, 0 losses in quads 2, 3, and 4. Man, oh man, oh man. What a weird deal for North Carolina.